You know, we humans have been telling stories to each other since the beginning. We tell stories from our childhood, stories about our adventures, and sometimes stories about our neighbors. Don't we hear stories every time we watch the news? A fable is a short story with a life lesson told to children to help them see what is good and bad behavior. I like fables, so I wrote and illustrated 3 books of fables. One from Indian fables, one from German, and one from Native American culture. This one is from long ago Germany, about good King Adolphus and his brave steed Ludwig. Okay, so long ago and far away, in what would one day be Germany, lived good King Adolphus and his villagers. He had been king a long time, and his once tall, strong body had filled out quite a bit, filled out his kingly clothes over the years. He was a good king, but he was human, so he wasn't a perfect king, as you will see. Good King Adolphus made a law that if any villagers saw an injustice in the kingdom, they should ring the church bell. And everyone should gather in the town square to figure out how to right the wrong.
Like they ripped it, and then they thought, no, actually that exists, we should repair it. And then they've just gone over them.
One morning, the villagers were going about their business. The baker was baking, the cobbler was cobbling, and the grocer was groshing. Suddenly, the church bell started clanging. What was this about?
Like they ripped it, and then they thought, no, actually that exists, we should repair it. And then they've just gone over them.
The villagers gathered at the town square, but instead of a neighbor with an injustice to report, all they saw was a skinny old horse chewing on the bell pull. His poor old ribs and hip bones were sticking out, and he looked sad and weary. Hans, the blacksmith, spoke up. "Whose horse is that?" Greta, the seamstress, answered, "Why, that's the king's horse, Ludwig." "The king's horse," said Hans. "Why, he's all skinny and raggedy." "Ah," said Greta, thinking back in time, "but when he and the king were young, Ludwig carried him prancing into battle. He was fat, shiny, and brave back then." "Who was fat, shiny, and brave?" asked sassy little Edda. "The king or Ludwig?" "Well," answered Greta, thinking, "I guess they both were." "But what happened to Ludwig?" asked Hans, who was very fond of horses. "When he got old, the king turned him out," answered Greta sadly. The people discussed this injustice. Hans marched determinedly over to the bell pull and began clanging. And he kept clanging. And he kept clanging. Until the king himself came down the hill from the castle to the town square, wearing a red cloak that flowed out behind him, and he was accompanied by his servant. "What's wrong, good people?" he asked. "Who are you tolling the bell for?" Little Etta stepped forward, hands on her hips, and said, "The bell tolls for you, O king." Hans said, "Your horse Ludwig carried you into battle. He served you faithfully and well for many years, and you threw him out when he was of no further use to you. We have decided this is wrong, and you must take Ludwig back to the royal stable and take good care of him all the days of his life. Or do you plan to throw us out as well when we can no longer serve you?" The king's face grew red as his cloak. He told his servant to lead Ludwig back to the royal stable. The king ordered that Ludwig be given a roomy stall and all the hay he could eat, be provided with a lush, grassy pasture, and be brushed until he shone every day. The villagers liked this almost as much as Ludwig did. He munched his hay and lazily swished his tail. In between his naps, and he strolled around his pasture, enjoying the warm sunshine on his shiny coat. Now Ludwig did eat like a pig, and soon was fat, round, and shiny. He looked pretty spiffy. He still had a sway back and kind of a pot belly, but after all, he was old, so we're not going to hold that against him now, are we?